So Welcome to Derry doesn't end with a win for either side. It ends with a warning for what's to come. The season 1 finale takes us out on a frozen lake with a war with Pennywise. It kills off some key characters and still reminds us that in Derry, evil never really dies. It basically just comes back. It just goes back to sleep. In this episode, we're going to break down the season finale, how the first chapter fits together, and all the Easter eggs, and what that title card means for the future of it. If you're wondering whether or not this was a prequel or some type of secret sequel, then stay locked in and we're going to talk Welcome to Derry. So in the finale, multiple things come together. We have some action at the school taking place, but the majority of the episode, at least the important part, centers around the lake outside of Derry. Basically assists Pennywise into turning Derry into this frozen tundra, but it freezes the lake as a bridge of sorts for him to cross so he could get to a location that he's going to take all of the kids that he kidnapped from the school. But we still have our core group of survivors now teaming up: Lily, Marge, Ronnie, Leroy, Rose, Tanya, and Dick Halloran. They have one objective in mind, and that is to reach the location that Pennywise is taking the children. That way they can bury the shard into the ground before he gets there with them, because if he gets there with them beforehand, then they're all going to be lost. But this hour basically weaves in the school abduction, the lake march, the military's interference, some personal sacrifices that are going to decide who survives and who tells the story of what happened. The one thing I am going to bring up is that title card shift, because it caught me completely off guard when it popped up on the screen and then gave us the chapter 1. That's clearly an indication that this is one event in a series of multiple events that are going to tell us this story of Pennywise, aka It. But when you all saw the chapter 1 title hit, did it make you think? Did it make you think that something deeper is coming, or that this story isn't over? Maybe this is the conclusion to the end of this story and the next chapter is going to be something different. Or maybe by the end of the episode, if you've seen it, then you may have a totally different opinion about what this really is. But before we crack open the spoilers, if you love deep dive breakdowns of horror finales and other shows like this, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the upcoming content. It helps us know what you guys like, and it also helps the show, and we'll keep bringing you more content just like this in future episodes. All right, so from here on out, it is full spoilers on Welcome to Derry, the season finale. So if you haven't seen the episode by now, then you might want to turn away and then come back once you do. So in my opinion, this was always going to be a chapter 1 or a saga in a bigger story. The season basically has been taking its time. Deciding who it wants to tell the story. And in the end, we find out that the person that's going to be telling the story is probably Pennywise, because this is clearly going to be his story to tell. By naming the show Chapter 1, I believe that this is a clear indication that this is literally a Chapter 1. So the finale kicks off at the school where Pennywise targets all of the kids directly. Not the core group of kids that we've been spending a lot of time with, but all the other kids in the town of Derry. Where are the adults when this is going on? I'm not sure. We saw the principal, who eventually gets decapitated and thrown into the middle of the floor while the kids are trying to run out of the gym. But the other adults in the school, the administrators, the teachers, or whoever they would be in the school at that time, I have no clue where they were. And honestly, I don't know where any of the adults in the town were, because we only saw the creepy face lady that was peeping through the door and a few other adults, so maybe they just knew to stay inside. But while at the school, Pennywise abducts the children and he makes all of them float, and he attaches them to the back of his wagon, and he's off from there and from there he takes them on a path through Derry, leading to the lake and I believe he's taken them to what's called a deadwood tree. And this is where his prison is underground somewhere, or a prison of sorts. But this is where he's basically going to take the kids and go hibernate with them for the next 27 years. And this time he'll just have a bigger snack, because he has all of the kids of Derry. And if he is to succeed with this plan, then this would be one big bloody massacre. What hit you harder in this scene? Was it how Pennywise basically just took over the school and took the kids without any fight? Or was it the lack of an adult presence? Because there were no adults to be seen at any point at all during this scene outside of the principal, but he was already dead when we met him because Pennywise was using him like a puppet. So while all of this was going on, Lily, Marge, and Ronnie are off on a side quest, basically trying to find Will. While they were at the standpipe, they noticed when they walked outside with all the mist in the air that was taking over the town, they noticed on the wall all of the kids that are missing. And these kids just so happen to be all of their classmates. So this is what put them on their collision course for trying to find Will, because they come across one of his posters floating through the street, and it's just like, oh, we have to save Will. We have to get Will. At no point did they think to, hey, let's go tell an adult, because maybe this is a little bit too dangerous for us to be doing, because, you know, we're just kids. And maybe we can get places faster with an adult around. But no, I mean, they eventually do, I can't say steal a milk truck because the milkman was dead, but they take a milk truck and they basically follow this bloody trail through the forest and the town of Derry, and they're going to go try to save Will themselves, because that's what all these kids do. Whether it's this show, Stranger Things, any show with kids are the main character, they just decide to save the day. And I'm not sure why all of these children tend to solve these cases faster than the adults do. But that's just my side rant, so I apologize for that. And while I mentioned the adults are kind of around. Hero is looking extensively for his son Will as well. He's at a house and he gets a phone call, and of course it's Pennywise on the other end playing his games and laughing on the phone. And you know, he lets Will speak to his dad in the background. Although that was probably him mimicking Will's voice, just how he played a trick on Will with Ronnie's voice. So after that happens, you know, he springs into action. He goes back and gets Dick and tries to snap Dick into action. And long story short, Dick and Leroy go out to the farm where Rose is, along with Charlotte and Tanya, and Hank is out there as well. Rose basically is going to help Dick quiet the voices in his head so that he can help them find the shard, which, you know, is also attached to the kids, because, you know, the kids are going to go try to kill Pennywise with this shard that they have no clue what to do with. Although this shard does, as we learn, as Rose tells us, start to turn people crazy the longer that they hold it. And we've seen Lily the last couple of episodes expressing her anger in different ways and slowly kind of unraveling. I'm thinking she's getting sent back to Juniper Hill at first, but no, it's just this shard that's treating her a lot like Lord of the Rings. My precious, my precious. And she is not trying to let this thing go. Even after the milk truck crash, she's not trying to let it go. It falls outside and she jumps out and, oh my God, don't touch it, don't touch it, don't touch it. A longer story short, Dick does happen to locate the kids with the shard. He was able to quiet the voices in his mind with the help of Rose and the Mandarin root that she gave him in the form of a tea. And, you know, he drank it, and a few seconds later, he was seeing everything clearly. But it put to bed the bad voices and spirits, and now he's able to see and hear the good voices and spirits. And that explains a lot, especially for his future going into The Shining and Dr. Sleep, on why he isn't mad anymore and why he's more calm and in control of his powers. But Rose explains that if Pennywise crosses the lake and gets to the Deadwood tree, that all the children will be prisoners of Pennywise, basically. She lays out the plan to go out to the lake, and they have to bury the shard in a specific spot right by the Deadwood tree. And this shard basically serves as a cosmic nail in the coffin of sorts, because as long as they get it into the ground before the kids get there, like I said before, I'm not going to say everything will be okay, but everything will be okay. So like I alluded to earlier, everything at this point starts to converge onto the lake. Pennywise and the kids are on one side. Lily, Marge, and Ronnie are running on the ice looking for Will on one side, and the adults are driving up fast behind them, and the adults are driving in Tanya's van, getting there as quick as possible. And I forgot to mention, in the background of all of this, the military is lurking. They're looking for Dick and Leroy because they were able to break out of the base, and we all know that Dick is the only person that could potentially slow Pennywise down. And the General Shaw knows that as well, and he is not trying to let that happen because for whatever reason, he's afraid of the women's movement. He's afraid of the voting rights issue because this is 1962, so let's remember. And he's afraid of all these things, and the country is just going array. And Pennywise is the answer to everything because this scared me when I was a little boy. So while out on the ice, the kids do find and reach Will, and they're able to distract Pennywise. And I'm not going to say that he really got distracted because he knew he was there. He knew the kids was there, and he decided to play a game with them. He surrounds the girls and start running around in circles, laughing and giggling, dancing through the fog, and basically putting a bunch of fear and low-key torturing these girls. And at that moment, right when you think he's about to pop back up, he reaches out and pulls Marge. He reaches out and pulls Marge on the ice. And once he gets her by herself, once he gets Marge by herself, and this scene gives us the biggest Easter egg probably in the show and to what's really going on, because this is the moment where Pennywise tells us exactly what is going on, exactly what his plan is. We get the what, we get the why, and we get the how. So Pennywise calls Marge by her real name, Margaret, but he throws Tozier on the end of that, clearly alluding to the fact that she is Richie Tozier's mother, and he basically confirms it when he pulls out the missing poster of Richie Tozier, letting Marge know that this is your son in the future, and he kills me, and I don't like that. And I can travel linear through time, and I'm present in the past, present, and the future, and somebody's going to have to pay for killing me because I'm not trying to die, basically. And that reveal is the biggest reveal of the series so far. We got confirmation that Marge is, in fact, Richie's mother. I thought a few episodes ago, I think I alluded to the fact that I maybe thought that she was Beverly's mother. And it's funny that we bring Beverly up as well because she clearly comes back up later in this episode. And this is the spoiler section, so it's okay for me to say that now, and I'll just tell you how later. But Pennywise lays out, like I said, that he's going back to the past he lays out that he's going back to close off the loops that were left open by the people that are left alive. Pennywise confirms that Pennywise says that he is going back to the past. He wants to close off these open loops because if he can kill the parents before these kids are even born, then he'll never die. At least not by that group of kids. And that does make you wonder where season 2 and 3 are headed. We know that season 2 has been confirmed to head to 1935. And we speculate that season 3 is heading to 1908. But what if, and we'll talk about this a little bit later too, but what if season 3 actually goes past It Chapter 2 into like a It Chapter 3 realm where we're telling a future story because maybe he succeeds and kills somebody and he's not alive again. But in the middle of all this chaos that's going on out on the ice outside of Pennywise, the military shows up and they start taking shots at the adults and anybody else that's out there on the ice outside of Pennywise. Because why would we want to shoot him? Because he's going to help us take down all the bad people in America. But in the midst of the shooting, Leroy is severely hurt. Daniel is unfortunately killed. But out on the ice, General Shaw sees a frozen Pennywise because he was going to eat Marge earlier after he got done telling her his secret. He was going to eat her, but he was frozen by Dick in his mind and taken back to 1908, just since we were talking about it. He's taken back to a quick scene in 1908, and he actually looks a little bit afraid in this scene because he thinks he's in control, and he's actually not because he's not in Dick's mind anymore. Dick is actually in Pennywise's mind this time. But Pennywise clearly realizes this, and he sees when Dick, the guy he's impersonating, puts his hand on the wall, he sees a black hand, and he clearly recognizes that, he's in my mind. So he kicks Dick out of the cart that they were in, and he kind of basically snaps back into reality. And when he does, General Shaw is standing right there in front of him. And General Shaw, for whatever reason, is really full of himself and thinks that he's truly in control because he's like, you can go free. Like, dude, who the fuck are you? Like, who are you to tell this god of sorts that, you can go free? And obviously that doesn't last very long because Pennywise definitely kills General Shaw. So after General Shaw became an appetizer, Pennywise starts running slowly. And I'm not sure if that was on purpose or not, or some type of dramatic effect because he's an asshole. But he starts running slowly towards the deadwood tree because he obviously knows that the kids are going in with the shard and to try to stop him. And we get our second big reveal in this episode, the spirit of Richie, because now Dick can see good spirits, and he's the only one that can see them. And I think maybe Rose maybe saw him as well, but I'm not really sure about that. But we definitely know Dick saw him. So Richie takes off as well in the direction of the kids along with Pennywise. So, Pennywise is running all slowly, and Richie's doing his thing. And Richie looks over at Pennywise and gives him the big bird finger, and it was fucking hilarious. And I love that scene. And I'm glad Richie got to finish out the season because since he got taken out in the last episode, and that really sucked. But it was good to see this redemption arc for him. Well, he didn't really need a redemption arc because he was like the hero. But it was good to see him come back and assist the other kids in putting the shard in the ground, and Pennywise jumping out like a bat out of hell, basically. And right before he gets to the kids, he, I don't even know what to call it. He twists up, balls up, ball of light, all that stuff happens, and he's gone. Well, he's not gone because we obviously know what he told us that, I can't succeed here. I'll go somewhere else. After that shard went into the ground, did you feel like they actually won something? Or that they just survived, they can take a little deep breath because in 27 years they're going to have to do this all over again anyways? Or what did you think about that? I think they just got a quick sense of relief because as the show ends, we learn that, everybody's trying to leave now. Ronnie and her dad are leaving. Rose hooked them up with a way to get to Canada so they can go live their life without being bothered. The Hanlons are planning to leave, but Rose drops them an offer about staying in town. And this basically explains how the Hanlons end up staying in Derry, or when we meet them, it explains why they're in Derry to begin with. But as per usual, after every crazy massacre or crazy thing that happens in Derry, everybody just turns a blind eye and everything slowly starts going back to normal, at least for the people that didn't deal with all this shit. But for the survivors, at least the ones that stay, they may or may not remember. But at least Ronnie and her family may get a chance to forget. Although Will tells her that I'm going to write you all the time and maybe you won't forget me because I'm not going to forget you. And I'm still curious to find out if Ronnie ends up being Mike's mom. And I guess we'll never know. And it's not really that important. It's just one of those just facts that's just kind of left out there, but it's not really that important. So let's talk about that Beverly reveal, because Beverly Marsh is revealed in this episode when we see an older version of Miss Kirsch, not the 106-year-old version, but the 1988 version, right before the year before the 1989 It Chapter 1 version. And she's back in Juniper Hill. Well, she's never left Juniper Hill since she's been there as a young adult 26 years prior. But we come into a room and we see a woman hanging from the roof, and we find out that it's Beverly Marsh's mom that hung herself from the roof, and Mrs. Kirsch came into the room to offer her condolences to Beverly. And this is just a cool little thing that they did basically just kind of play with time in the show, or to give us further indication in the show that they are going to be playing with time, and maybe these people could pop in and out of different stories depending on where this series as a whole decides to go. And that brings me to Dick, because we leave with Dick letting us know that he's off to England to go work at a hotel where he's going to be working as a cook. And this is probably somewhere between 1962 and 1963. And this gives us some insight into how he became a cook or a chef by the time we get to The Shining. But there is one story that I want to touch on, and you book readers probably may know it or not. It was a story of its own. It's called Crouch End. It was part of the Nightmares and Dreamscape series by Stephen King. It takes place in between what would be this 1962 version of Derry and the events of The Shining. That 11-year gap in between those times, it doesn't go there. At least we don't know if he goes there or not. But this story takes place, but this is one of the few Stephen King stories to take place in England. And I bring all of this up because that's where Dick is heading. And what if they decide to do some type of spinoff series starring Dick over in there using the Crouch End story, giving us more backstory into Dick before he actually ends up at the Overlook? And that's just my theory that I wanted to throw in there because After watching the entire season and then seeing that little Easter egg drop in there, it made me think about that story. And I was just wondering, like, where is this world going? Could they do more stories outside of Derry? And if they do, what source material will they use and how will it come about? But outside of that, we all saw that this finale leaned into Pennywise's strange relationship with time. So these are the things that, so that is the thing that makes some of these questions arise, in my opinion. But once Pennywise started talking about Richie and his fate and how time works for him, how did this make you look at the story as a whole at that point? Did it flip the entire season on its head and make you look at the entire season differently? Or everything that we know about Pennywise and it differently as well? Is this even an origin story anymore? Or is this a secret sequel that we didn't know was coming because this was presented to us as a It prequel and this is an origin story going to tell us about Pennywise, but it quickly made a left-hand turn and turned into a sequel because the moment we start bringing in time, this is no longer a prequel. This was a sequel to It Chapter 2, in my opinion. And Pennywise basically told us that, yeah, I died, but I know that I died. So in order for me not to die, I need to go to the past and kill some of these parents off. That way I don't die. So in my opinion, this is clearly a direct sequel to It Chapter 2. And now that the show itself is called It, Welcome to Derry, Chapter 1, it gives even more credence to that argument that this is a direct sequel and that it's just kind of like the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. Same story, same characters, just different titles. It's just a continuation of the story. So let me think. Did we hit everything? We talked about the school sequence and the kids being abducted, the lake freezing over, the Rose and Dick explaining the shard. Dick pushes his shining. They cross the lake. Pennywise is more monstrous. The shard in the tree. The town's denial. Pennywise tell Marge about her future son. And it been a direct sequel to It Chapter 2. I believe we covered everything. And with that, season 1 does not feel like a prequel. To me, it feels more like a sequel and a continuation of a story that we've been getting for the last several years. Only this time, we're not going to be marching forward in time into whatever the next 27 years would be after It Chapter 2. We're going backwards in time. And from 1962, we're headed to 1935 and explore that era. And I think the 30s will be interesting. We'll see an even younger version of Ingrid. And I heard that she's going to be a sympathetic yet vicious character at the same time because, as we saw in the little clip, she has no issue feeding kids to Pennywise. But I wonder what other characters are going to come up in the 90s. Could we see a younger version of Dick? Maybe we meet Dick's grandmother and grandfather. Leroy mentioned his father from time to time, but never seemed like they were part of Derry, so I doubt we meet the Hanlons. I'm sure we'll see a younger version of Rose and the children of Maturin. So those are people that I feel like we'll see, off the top of my head. But who do you think we'll see in the season 2, chapter 2, 1935? But after everything that we've all seen, this question is for you. How do you feel like everything played out? Do you think Welcome to Derry works better as an origin story or that it does a good job at deepening the movie story? Let me know what you guys think about that down in the comments. Please, again, don't forget to like and subscribe. I appreciate it. And thank you for coming by. And I will see you next time. Bye.